Hi everyone, thank you so much for popping along to hear a little about pipelining with a twist. And the twist in this scenario from Charlotte and I is going to be about the hiring manager stepping in and taking responsibility, because we are all recruiters. So the way we're going to work it today is Charlotte and I will go through a bit of strategy on how we're both doing this in our respective companies. And then we're going to bring up some guests to have a bit of a discussion. My name is Lindsay. I lead talent acquisition for LinkedIn, focusing on the EMEA region. Joining me today will be one of my hiring partners, Frank Hatan, who leads our SMB business for sales solutions.
I'm Charlotte Harris. I lead recruitment globally for Regis. I have basically two things to do. One is to build a world-class leadership team that'll take us into our 2020 growth strategy. And the other part is to deliver recruitment expertise that will fuel that growth, so put all of our people into the centres that we want to open. And joining me on stage today will be Nikki Brooks, who's been my right hand, or my right arm, I should say, over the last 2 years in leading these projects globally.
Okay, so just to give a bit of background in terms of, why are we doing this from a pipeline perspective, and just the importance of pipeline as we scale. So scaling is a word, or scale is a word I probably say every day, and I hear all the time at LinkedIn. It's been a company of absolute tremendous growth. It's been a privilege to be part of talent acquisition over the last 4 years in EMEA. And I tend to use this picture a lot when I describe what it's like to work at LinkedIn in the TA function. For us, it's really about finding our way, taking some big steps, some very steep steps, and really working towards our talent acquisition vision. So our vision is to design, share, and build best on planet recruiting. And our mission is that we are LinkedIn on LinkedIn, revolutionizing the hiring experience. And part of that revolution and that experience is Talent Pipeline. Now, I will admit that Talent Pipeline, if all of our hiring managers had their way, they would like Talent Pipeline every day, just to pop into a role and to have someone start tomorrow. But it's a very different reality. Because we're all recruiters, and this is something Jeff Weiner says all the time. Recruiting isn't the responsibility just of the talent acquisition function. It's a combination of many, many people. And I'm going to share a little bit about that story of what we've done this year in particular to give that hiring manager that responsibility.
So let's talk about Regis. You probably know us as office company or to book a meeting room. But actually, the world of work is changing beyond recognition. The 9-to-5 routine is basically going. People are working where they want and when they want. And with 1 billion mobile workers, it's only going to grow. So running a business is a lot more complicated with flexible working, and this is a daunting task for a lot of businesses worldwide, which is why we exist. We pioneered flexible working 20 years ago, and we now lead the world in helping businesses make flexibility work for them. With a global network of more than 2,000 locations in 104 countries and growing, it makes it easier for our clients to be successful by working in new ways. So we have a seamless network. Wherever you are in the world, Regis is nearby. So we're in business centres, but increasingly in locations such as listed on here. Railway stations, motorway services, airports, retail outlets, community centres, and this year has seen us building big hubs in education establishments worldwide where businesses can engage with tomorrow's entrepreneurs. Companies like Google, Toshiba, Glaxo, and millions of others come to us to make their lives easier. And as the only truly global workforce provider, our mission is to make our customers more successful. That's it. So in the first 20 years, and we're only 25 years old, we opened 1 centre a week. In the last 2 years, we've opened more than 1 a day. Half the world's population is less than an hour's drive from a Regis centre, and since 2009, we invested more than £1 billion in growth and innovation. And do you know we have a driverless car at the moment? So we helped Twitter open locations in 12 new countries, and we helped Google open in more than 30 countries, and and in half of its locations, Salesforce rely on Regis for their operations. We have the largest public access VC network and the world's most disaster-resilient network of locations. And every day, we answer 1 million phone calls so our customers don't have to, and every year, we handle more than 2 billion items of post. So our growth plans are more than 2 new locations a day, and this is driven by demand of flexible working, not just to rent an office. Less than 1 in 5 of our nearly 2 million customers rent an office from us, meaning more than 4 in 5 work flexibly. This year, we'll open 450 new locations. Next year, it will be more. And as a people business providing a service, we need great people, and our growth means we need lots of great people, so pipelining talent is critical for our success. Okay.
So I'm going to talk to you through the first pillar, which is partnerships, right? So we as recruiters need our hiring managers to successfully attract talent to shape the future of our organizations, because essentially it is our number one priority. So the language that we've been using at LinkedIn, the education, the collaboration, the communication, and the commitment has really been about we. So we need to hire ASAP. What candidates do we have in our pipeline? It's a joint responsibility. Now, the first state of that process is something we don't like being in, but it's a very true reality. We've got no pipeline. So we haven't been pipelining, we're reactive, and we've got to focus on that addressable market. Now, that addressable market at LinkedIn is 338 million members. We just use LinkedIn to recruit. And the hiring manager and the recruiter must start from scratch. Second stage, which is a nicer stage, is what we call talent potentials. We have been having coffees. We've started our discussions. There's a couple of people we're interested in. We can kind of kick off more of a formal process. And the wonderful, beautiful state that we'd all love to be in is, yep, got a great pipeline. We've got people in our talent tribe, so that's what we call at LinkedIn, our talent pools. They're engaged. They're committed. They're liking LinkedIn. They're aware that we're about to open some roles. And let's really start focusing on getting them in the process. And it's been about coactively making sure that together we're keeping that talent engaged. So with a colleague of mine this year, Harry DeBar, who's one of our recruitment product consultants who you may have heard chat earlier on, we wanted to take that coactive model to the next stage. And this is happening in pockets. We're focused on building a coactive pipeline process in our sales organization, particularly our volume sales organization in Dublin, the sales development teams, and the SMB teams. So this is the funnel approach, and what you will notice is our traditional funnel on the right-hand side is what we're used to as recruiters, okay? So we're the ones that drive the funnel, lead the funnel, build the funnel, create the funnel, manage the funnel. Coactive flips the responsibility. So the hiring manager takes responsibility when they know they will have headcount coming through, and they take that initial responsibility of the engagement piece, so identifying talent on Recruiter, partnering with the recruitment consultant they're working with, engaging with that talent, exploring that talent, getting them on site, having that phone call, and then it starts to maneuver. So you start to flip it around where the recruiter is doing less at that stage, but they come in more at the manage and onboard stage. Now, at that manage and onboard stage, we know we're going to have a requisition open. We're ready to step more in. We're ready to help them. And ultimately, then we take over for the close and onboard period. And this is simply due to the volume of work that's happening at LinkedIn, where we're consistently and constantly scaling our 9 countries.
Okay, so I'm going to talk you through a little story as to what we've done to get to where we are to today with our hiring managers. So a couple of years ago, we were asked by Regis to look at their recruitment. Basically, they operated in 4 geographic regions, UK, EMEA, APAC, and the Americas, and that's how the business was structured. Each of those locations had its own centralized staffing team. And basically, it wasn't joined up at all. No system, no process. So we went through a due diligence process, talked to lots of people in the business, benchmarked externally, and basically thought, well, no wonder recruitment isn't going to work. We're just not going to get to where we want to get to if we want to open up 500 plus locations every year. It's just not scalable. And the business were complaining. There's a great comment coming up. HR don't recruit people fast enough for us. Something was fundamentally wrong. It's basically the business's responsibility to hire these people, not HR's. So what to do? We are a very entrepreneurial organisation, and even though we are centralised in terms of our governance and control, actually we empower our country managers and our local GMs. They are kings to us. They run their own P&L. So the answer seemed quite simple. We needed to have a simple and scalable global recruitment process for all of our field hiring. And when I say field hiring, I'm talking about the people that work in our locations. It's about 75 to 80% of our population that work in and run the centres. First of all, we standardised all the roles across the globe. So you're a customer service representative in Seattle, you do exactly the same job if you work in Shanghai or Sydney. It's as simple as that. And then we scoped a decentralised model. We decided to turn our hiring into self-service. Basically, if we enabled our hiring managers to own and run their own recruitment, that makes them accountable, and they can't throw HR under the bus anymore. So to do this, we needed to automate and simplify the process so it doesn't hinder them. I mean, these guys have got a job to do, but essentially we ask our hiring managers, or we ask our GMs to do three things, which is make their numbers, have happy customers, and hire and train great talent. So actually, enabling them to do that is enabling them to do their job. In order to make this work, we needed to put in a structure that would support it. We can't have 2,500 hiring managers calling us up every day saying, help, I don't know what to do. So we put in a field structure of recruitment champions to help make this work. And essentially, these are people on the ground that took on additional responsibility to help and acted as an escalation route. And fundamentally, they operated as trainers as well. And of course, we went out and bought a great ATS and turned it into a lovely automated process to do this. But in essence, what we were doing is helping our hiring managers to do their job. So we've now got 2,500 people hiring and not a handful in HR. Okay.
Great. So now you're doing all this work in the back end. You're reaching out and you're engaging with talent. You've got to keep them warm. That's a challenge I hear often. Because with pipelining, nothing exists. So how do you keep that candidate enticed and hooked? So it's the communication, but it's the how of the communication. So this morning, if you attended Brendan and Wendy's chat, Brendan brought up our addressable market approach and how it's similar to how sales and marketing organizations look at their leads. So I want to talk you through what that means as part of the pipeline process as well. And again, this is something we do together with the hiring managers. So if you look at the lovely blue box of our core candidates, when we pipeline and we see those core candidates, they're essentially the people we want to give that glorious red carpet service to. We want to have that one-to-one approach. And we look at the how. Sit with the hiring manager, we look at the in-mail, we look at the communication, we look at the messaging, and ultimately we're looking for the hook. So giving the hiring manager that confidence, without the recruiter, to start doing their own engagement and how to turn that hook into an exploring conversation that can happen on site. We then really look at all the other pipelining that we're doing, which essentially is all of our follower ecosystems. There are connections, there are people following our career pages, and they're ultimately people that we would love to get hooked in our organizations. The red box is actually quite crucial to our success. It's looking at our branding opportunities. So these are people that have expressed an interest in working for LinkedIn. They're following us. They're engaged in our content. I want to keep them enticed, and I want to keep them coming back to LinkedIn. So we look at our one-to-many approach, which is the likes of recruitment media. It could be how we're sharing content. It can be an overall direct approach to ultimately looking at our volume hiring. The green box, unfortunately, is talent that may not be suitable at this moment in time, so it gets a little bit of a deprioritization. And then the lovely purple box is other potential, so fantastic for LinkedIn, Absolutely great fit, just not for this role, so what do we do? How do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them coming back? And these are conversations we have at a table together. So making sure that you're both aligned in how we're thinking of attracting talent, because it has to happen together and ultimately to make it successful. We've done a lot of work with helping our hiring managers understand our tools. And our flagship product is Recruiter. So we have a methodology in place, we have an infrastructure when it comes to talent pipeline, and we teach them how to use project folders. We teach them how to share across project folders. They all have access to the Recruiter tool. They're on the hiring manager extended version. We teach them how to tag. So we have a tagging convention. If they're coming across profiles, if they're thinking of that 4-box model you've just seen, how do you help them tag so that the recruiter can also identify that talent with them? Custom fields, the source, where have we got this talent from? Is it a referral, actually, that we can pop into the talent tribe? Is it a network connection? How do we know this talent and how do we keep it engaged? And then it's about the status updates, so helping them use our tools so that the recruiter is consistently having that light touch. The most important piece is, again, I'm going to speak to the engagement. Recruiter is a fabulous tool, but if you don't know how to be a marketeer as a hiring manager and a recruiter, it can fall flat. What relevant content will we share? Something that's working beautifully is when we actually share influencer posts that are relevant to that person's current role. So doing something that's not essentially about the job, but that you're on top of their mind, you're thinking of them. Here's an amazing post that I found really cool, and I just wanted to share it with you. Second piece is just regular updates. So you've gone to the trouble of having that red carpet relationship. What's working really well and feedback we're getting is I love the one-to-one. So putting a reminder on a profile for the hiring manager, putting something in their calendar, committing to those coffee meetings, and all of our hiring managers have to commit to at least 2 passive coffee meetings a month. That's all of them across the 9 countries. And the final piece that we're starting to kind of ramp up on is events. So if we're having events in the local offices, how do we bring talent in and make them feel part of the organization when they're not yet part of that organization?
Okay, so it wasn't just about buying a system, putting in recruitment champions and delivering a bit of training. We actually had to give all our hiring managers some toolkits and some best practice. We didn't have an employer brand, and some may argue that it's still not brilliant. We're working on it. It's a journey. What we inherited was pretty shocking. But the brand needed aligning, which we did. We turned that around fairly quickly with the help of a local agency. And this was really so that our hiring managers knew how to speak to their local audience. We developed some toolkits for them in terms of advertising. We developed a complete library so that if they were doing recruitment fairs, job fairs, if they were doing local press advertising, even putting posters up in their local centres, they had it all there at their disposal. The training that we provided was a 2-day workshop, train the trainer, so essentially getting all our recruitment champions to one room and then getting them to train all the hiring managers, so basically moving by stealth and turning everybody into a recruiter. And then continually looking to improve our online training and our classroom training and all of our toolkits and careers website. That's just an ongoing process. Okay.
So the final piece that we want to talk you through is the measurements of success, because that's critical for many different reasons. So for us at LinkedIn, it's about a revenue impact. Okay, so the majority of our hiring in EMEA, so about 80% of our hiring is for the sales organization. So if you can reduce that quota from impacting our hiring managers without a headcount, it's just paramount to the success of our growth. You heard as well today, and you've heard it a couple of times, talent is our #1 operating priority at LinkedIn, and that's a fabulous thing to be a part of. It also comes with great demand and pressure from a TA perspective, and it's about buy-in. So when we're looking to implement processes such as coactive, it's something I share with the EMEA leadership team. It's something we share as a recruitment team, and it's definitely something we share with our hiring managers and their managers. It's a commitment that we need to have to happen in order to make it successful. So we look at the short-term investment of that commitment, but it pays off in the long run. So my advice is definitely have those advocates that can hold your hiring managers accountable to make it work collaboratively. The success metrics that I'm about to show you are on the recruiter part of the coactive process, so they're on the tool. So we're actually starting to look at how our hiring managers are leveraging our own products, and ultimately it happens across 4 core quadrants. So the growth metrics comes first, activity metrics second, we then look at engagement, massively important, and then results, which makes the magic happen. So if I look at growth, we look at things like how many profiles have they been saving, what's their recruiter usage. They may tell you they're spending those couple of hours doing that pipelining. Well, let's see what the report says. And we look at the in-mail response growth. It's fantastic looking at a hiring manager's in-mail response rate go from something quite low to something even higher. And as we all know here, when a hiring manager sends that in-mail over a recruiter, tends to have a more positive effect. Let's look at the activity metrics. So how many searches are they doing? What tags are they using? Sources by user, by hiring manager. What's the percentage of in-mail response rates? How are we doing from an engagement perspective? What's the candidate experience been like? Because you now take over, the recruiter takes a little bit of a back seat. How many prospects do we have in the talent tribe? How many people together are we keeping engaged? How many profiles have we been sharing back and forth? And that's a great way to do that, and I love the fact that recruiters are mobile now, so there's no excuses for the hiring managers. We look at the number of hires that we've made through this way, through this engagement. We're able to track that source on the ATS when we move the candidate into being more active. And ultimately, it's about reducing our time to hire, and then the impact in revenue, which I know will make a lot of our sales leaders quite happy.
So in terms of measurement, we've got a number of things that we look at. We've now got some benefits at high level. We've got some global consistency, transparency, and data. We've got a forward-looking view of what new centres we're opening over the next 4 to 6 months and actually where we're at in terms of hiring them, because we've got this process and this system now. And actually the benefits on the ground enable our hiring managers to get on and owning it at their own pace. Means that they're a lot happier in their skin and we're supporting them. So we've done a couple of surveys. This is going to come out really slowly. I'll just whiz through it. And I think the key one for me would be the fact that 43% of our hiring managers believe that all of our pre-screening process of candidates are successful, and 45% are not sure. I can live with not sure. Overall, we've had quite a good success rate in this. There are some pockets around the world in terms of certain countries have found it a little bit stickier to get to grips with, but actually because what my team are doing now is more focusing on the attraction piece, the branding piece, the enablement, the training and the toolkits, they can quickly zone in and help those areas out quite easily, as opposed to being just reactively sourcing oodles and oodles of CVs the whole time. But we are a long way from the finish line. Implementing a recruitment process, enabling these hiring managers, buying a system is the easy part. Getting everybody globally to embrace this change and change their behaviour is the difficult part. As I said, we only ask them to do 3 things: make their numbers, make sure they've got happy customers, and hire and train great people. So you might ask, why would HR support the direction of hiring managers to recruit their own people? Well, we firmly believe our job in HR is to provide the tools and training for our managers and leaders to do it for themselves. With the growth that we have a scalability and capacity challenge, so it's absolutely critical that we have 2,500 people recruiting and not just a handful in HR. Okay.
So I know you're thinking what we're all thinking. How is this possible when we have 1 million recs to fill in a reactive way? And I think it comes down to prioritization, visibility, and planning. But for me, it comes down to the relationship we have with our hiring partners. So please help me welcome in Frank and Nikki to the stage, and we'll get into our discussion. in the middle on this there. Perfect. So Frank, so you've heard our CEO Jeff Weiner talk about a lot. We're all recruiters. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to understand how your hiring manager, how this resonates with you.
So first and foremost, we all recruiters regardless of position because everybody represents a brand. So that's where kind of the whole company is involved in that already. But then as a hiring manager, and Charlotte actually phrased it very nicely, we own a number or we have to deliver a project. We held to that and we need the people to do that for us. So in the end, I own the process regardless. I own this hiring process and I have great partners to help me. Mm-hmm. And once I approach it like that, obviously we are in this together and then pipelining and everything until I have that person there is me as much as the partners I'm working with.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't mind, and you were in PayPal before you joined LinkedIn, Frank was actually the first manager I hired 4 years ago.
Thank you. Again.
Good hire. I'm curious to know how you've gotten here. So now you co-lead Pipeline with us, which we're very grateful for. Tell us a little bit about what it was like, perhaps not ever co-leading Pipeline to where you are now.
So I come from a background where I got to meet the people that had to work for me or had the privilege of working for me, whichever way you want to go, the first time on their first day. And that got to an environment which maybe some of you are familiar with, becomes a finger-pointing exercise. When I wasn't happy, I could blame the recruiter, and the recruiter could always blame me for something as well. So it was never a great relationship. Mm-hmm. So I actually took it up on myself, tried to involve myself proactively, and I got to understand the job of a recruiter because I didn't know the work. And actually from a sales perspective, it was very easy because there's a lot of it that's very similar. But the key thing is when you understand how it works, you start to understand as well how you can get involved. Mm-hmm. And that's where I kind of got started on a process of understanding. But then I got to join LinkedIn, I got to work with you. And
there you go.
I got to work with the great tools as well we have, which obviously then you get involved in pipelining automatically because the tools obviously make that much simpler. But the key thing is it's a learning process. It's not something I was told and therefore I done it, or it's not something one day I had an epiphany. I had to get there, and luckily I think I'm close enough now.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever feel a little bit of resistance of wanting to get to a place where you co-led your hiring? Was it something you always thought that the recruitment team should do, and that's that?
Again, it comes back to at one stage you need to take responsibility, and I own a number which I have to deliver on, and there's clearly always still something we want to do better. The great thing is once you accept it as a partnership, mm-hmm. and you understand as well how a recruiter is held to a number as well. So then the understanding is clear. We're both losing out here mm-hmm. if we're not doing it together. And there are difficult times, but the great thing is we talk about it and we fix it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Frank, you lead a team of managers, and some of them we have hired internally, so they get the LinkedIn way of collaborating when it comes to pipeline. But we've hired externally also, pretty new managers as you're scaling out the sales solutions business. What pushback or challenges have you had when there is an expectation for your managers to own their own pipeline? I'm sure it's not all roses.
So, in the end, it's a learning process, and I have to appreciate that people come from environments which I was familiar with as well, where it wasn't a standard, and therefore it's a learning process. So first and foremost, you help people with understanding what we have as a standard, and then you hold them to it. But as well, again, you make them quite clear. It's not just their compensation plan that holds them responsible, because an empty seat in sales costs you real money, money you don't have in your pocket. I hold them responsible. And what we do on top of that, we involve the recruitment team into our management meetings. Mm-hmm. So there's always an invite there. There are topics which are relevant, and we have the recruitment team definitely there. Other topics where it is a nice to have, but not a must have. But it is always a team. We never see it as those guys over there, and then us as a sales team. We are one team, and we're driving towards something together. And last but not least, I'm trying to lead by example, so I don't let myself off the hook, and mm-hmm. therefore I surely won't leave my managers off the hook.
Mm-hmm. We're grateful for that, thank you. How has this elevated the role of you and your recruiter together with that partnership?
Yeah, I think the key thing is once you understand the wider business impact and you understand how people are targeted as well, it makes you a more rounded leader. And the same way as we include then our recruiters as well in not just our management meetings, but into planning meetings and so on, it elevates obviously the recruiter at this stage then as well to become part of the business leadership and plan out what this could look like. And then you get to understand as well, when you do planning specifically, that maybe what in your mind sounds also easy and it's a no-brainer, may not be as easy after all, because you understand that while maybe in the UK market hiring was actually a little easier, you go into other markets and your time to hire certainly is a lot longer, and that's not a natural thought process for a sales leader per se. So that's why I think we're elevating all of us in that room then to become better business leaders, because we understand the wider impact and plan better.
And just perhaps finally, Frank, loads of recruiters in the room, and I'm sure some hiring managers. What piece of advice would you give any recruitment leader here who's looking to have their hiring managers be more collaborative and take ownership for pipeline?
Yeah, so I mean, ideally you obviously get them all to understand what your role is like and how you are targeted and pull them in this way. But I think more important, and that's I think what really helped us as well always, is you get to really understand what's in their head, the ideal person. And that's not an easy one to pull out, because when I'm asked by my recruiters, describe kind of what your ideal candidate is, I find that very difficult. I struggle with that. I see a few of them nodding down there. So it's about this constant conversation, and then when pushing back as well when a hire gets declined, or when they may make a hiring decision which you say, that's an odd one, but the two candidates, you would have thought they go somewhere else. Try to get into their head and understand why they make those decisions, because it isn't always easy to formulate it, but actually the action you take when you do the hiring, or sometimes even the firing, that's really telling you what actually really somebody wants and looks for.
Thanks for sharing, Frank.
Thank you.
Nikki, I mean, I've given a very high-level view of a very in-depth and painful project that we went through over a year and a half, or over the last sort of 2 years, really. But just tell me, what was the sort of most common challenge in getting the hiring managers to own their own pipelining and recruitment?
Well, I think in some ways we were quite lucky because they wanted to do it. They wanted to own it. They wanted that control. They were frustrated with the time HR was taking, so we could use that. The main concerns really sat around how am I going to do it? What am I going to have to help me do it? And what happens if I hire someone and it goes really wrong? And those were the biggest concerns to deal with, really.
And so throughout the projects, I mean, so what kind of engagement and feedback were you getting from the hiring managers? I mean, what did you have to do to build that for them?
Not a lot. They were all too happy to tell us the pain.
Right.
But initially at the beginning of the project, and this was a huge project, we had 2 pilot countries, the UK and the US. We got a collection of hiring managers from both of those countries, created a focus group. So we spent a lot of time talking to them. What did they need? Where did they feel their competency sat? How did they think we could help them to make recruitment work for them? And actually, it was the best thing to do because they told us the tools they needed. We created them and gave them the recruitment and HR touch. But essentially, we gave them what they asked for.
And I know I've touched upon the role of the recruitment champion, but it is critical to the success of this.
Yeah.
I mean, can you just give a little bit more colour around what a recruitment champion actually did and how it enabled?
Again, so looking constantly for the business buy-in, we asked the business themselves to select their recruitment champions, and they were generally general managers all over the world, successful general managers, and they were tasked with the role of recruitment champion. And ultimately, that role sat in 3 main areas: enablement, training, and escalation. And what that meant was we built a recruitment champion training course, which was great. So I spent a long time building that with our L&D team. Everybody that was selected as a recruitment champion went on a 2-day recruitment boot camp, for want of a better word, which ended with a train the trainer, so that they could then go out to the world and train for us. They were our troops on the ground. And then an escalation point, and what we meant by that was if there were specific tools that weren't working, say in Asia Pacific, or we needed to change it specifically in Germany or France, they could come escalate into our team and we could work with them. You can deal with 150 odd people across the globe. You can't deal with 2,500 to 3,000 hiring managers. So they were great. They were our troops, essential.
And are we still providing the same level of support to these people now?
So it's BAU now. So that they're going about their thing. That they're all good. I love it. I still communicate out with them. I devised a recruitment champion network. So we meet. We have conferences. I do emails out with newsletters, with news, different things that we're introducing or improvements to our systems. And I love it that they can come back and say, yes, we know. Okay, great, So it's still there and it's established, and people actually ask to be champions now. They enjoy it.
And I guess the key question is how do we get our hiring managers to think and act like recruiters?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, Charlotte, earlier, the fact of the matter is our managers have 3 things they need to do. So they need to make their sales figures, they need to have really happy customers, they need to hire talent and develop that talent. So really, the last 14 months of my life has been spent ensuring that they can do a big part of their job really, really well, with great tools, great system, great recruitment champions, etc. So, we've helped them do it better. And ultimately, everyone is a recruiter, right? Everyone's a brand ambassador. Everyone's out there doing their thing, and we've just made it easier for them.
Great for building a referral network.
Great for building a referral network.
Yeah. And now that we've got this in place, how easy has it been to add new areas such as business units, new products or services that we're bringing out that need to be staffed?
Well, when we first sat at the very beginning of this project in a very dark room and sat there designing what this was going to be, the fact of the matter is it needed to be really simple. It needed to be globally scalable. So, moving forward with Regis's growth, we could change and do things quickly. And that's what we've done. So what do we do? So I've recently just finished working with Regis Express and getting them globalized. So they're our airports, hotels, etc. And it's a case of who are going to be our recruitment champions. Let's get them trained. Let's add those job codes to our system, push it live. There's the toolkit, off you go. Couple of days, business units live and going. And then whichever business unit, go. It's done.
And
Very
they can
simple.
build great pipelines.
Absolutely, our pipeline now. So one of the biggest things that we had was issues with agencies and pipelines. And we've got I think, something in excess of 5,000 or 6,000 people sat in the pipeline across the globe in Regis, in our recruitment management system. What more can you ask for?
There you go. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Great. So great to hear from the customer as well, which is always fantastic, rather than the recruiter talking about it all the time. So really, just to sum it up in terms of key takeaways, it is about the partnership, right? So everything we do together with our business is for the success of our business. So hiring is more than twofold, actually. There's a lot of other partners than just the hiring manager and the recruiter. But you've got to find a way of making it work together and definitely hold that accountability. And having that stakeholder buy-in is massively key to your success. Engagement. How do we hook passive talent? It's not the easiest thing to do. How do you make sure that our business leaders are telling the right story, are delivering the right message, are saying all the lovely, wonderful things you want them to say? And just how do we make sure that we're consistently keeping that talent really excited about roles that's going to come up to ultimately transform their career? And measurements of success, what's the impact? I mean, we all love to understand the impact of all of our work. And you've got to find measurements of success that really work for you. And the accountability piece is crucial here. Managers have to have this as part of their OKRs. Their own manager has to keep them accountable. And we've got to make sure if we're putting in all this work on the TA side, then how is the hiring manager meeting us halfway? So with that, I would love to open it up for any questions you guys may have. And I believe there's going to be a couple of mics. Yeah, one or... So you just get to So Amy, just here at the front. It's here. Do you want to just put your hand up for the question?
Hi, I'm Deepa. I'm with AXA Wealth. I have a quick question for you. I mean, all this about partnership, it sounds brilliant. It's like the ideal Zen sort of world. But in real terms, I mean, we all know the hiring managers are so busy. Sometimes they don't even respond to an email for a week or so. So I would like to have a question for Frank in terms of the best bit about you did everything great, well done. But what was the...
Frank's not good all the time. Are you, Frank?
So what was the tough bit? What were the not so good bit about it? And how did you overcome that?
So I'm one of those that's not very good with email, by the way. That's why you got laughed out of this corner. Thank you. But the key thing for me is it's about communication. I think, and I actually invite my recruiters to step on my toes, and they frequently do, because I'm one of those that doesn't fill in always the forms which are there after an interview. I don't respond to an email quick enough, but I do take my talent very serious. And I do actually take the talent experience very serious as well. So for me, that is important, and that's why I invite people as well to actually push me on that. And I think the key for me was always the understanding as well. I have people, and maybe the Ali Kabir example is the best one. I asked him, he's happy enough to be mentioned. But we had people we wanted to hire into the business, the purple box, which Lindsay mentioned, and we didn't have a role. So we had to discuss what we're going to do. So we talk. And that's the easiest way to do it. And then actually, in this case, I took the responsibility because half the time the recruiters will actually look after the purple box, but sometimes we decide, no, it's me. So I spoke to him over a year. He kept on speaking to me. And in the end, we decided, and again, it's the recruiter coming to me and say, there is another role which this guy may fit. Would you just want to approach that? We did. He actually got hired by one of our colleagues in a different business line, done outstanding there. And you know what? He's going to work for us now as of next year. So what goes around comes around in the end. And this is, again, the secret is just talking, not emailing. Emailing is not the secret. I just want to point that out. Not with me anyway, but talking. And the more often you get actually into a room where either one-to-one or you be part of that meeting, you understand how people tick. That's when you can sometimes step on their toes if they allow you to, or at least you can ask them more questions. And that's when it all starts.
Thank you. Sorry, I have one more question for the TA team. In terms of, from the HR point of view, we always try to make sure that, we have great candidate experience, diversity, discrimination. We have to bear all these points into our mind before we, shortlist our candidate. And that's always the thought process. It's always going on. So in terms of your sort of point of view, because you are giving sort of a new approach to recruitment and transferring this to the hiring manager, what sort of measures did you take to make sure that they are aware of these sort of parameters in the selection process?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really transparent with how we work at LinkedIn with our hiring. And a really key piece of that is the model that we have in place with the TA team. It's a country-aligned recruiting team, very focused and dedicated to a certain amount of hiring managers, and it does come back to communication. A huge piece of what we do is an intake meeting. It's setting the expectation out very clearly from the start. It's knowing the impact of the hire. It's knowing the profile of hire. It's challenging and influencing what the profile of hire should be. It's asking the question of where the organization is going. Do we have the right talent now, what does that great talent look like, but where are we going and what does that profile look like? And they're very open, frequent discussions that we're having, and as Frank mentioned, we do sit at those planning meetings, we have those very open discussions, and the transparency is key for our success, as well as Frank's success as a hiring manager. So those components are absolutely taken into consideration. There's other partners that sit with us, in particular our HR business partners, because we have to understand in TA succession planning, what's happening with the org, what's happening with the team, who is our best players, why are they our best players? So there's just a lot of conversations that happen, nothing is hidden. I'm very grateful for that, and it's definitely a good sign of trust, but it takes time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Frank as well, if that's okay. Curious to know, when you were first introduced to this, the pipelining process, I can only imagine that some of my managers would be quite resistant. So aside from actually making a hire through the introduction of this process, from your own personal perspective, curious to know if there were any key milestones that made you feel like actually the pipelining process was a real benefit to the organization and got you much more bought into the process.
I think one key milestone is when you deal with salespeople, it might be a little easier because we're very competitive by nature. Yeah. And if I get access to a recruiter tool and I can show off my hiring team and how I can create a pipeline, I will do so. And in real world though, most hiring managers will turn around and think they can do a better job. Mm-hmm. They will have those conversations, but then make them. Having a powerful tool obviously makes that much easier, and just being able to actually, the way we work, and Lindsay explained it, being able to see the folders and actually sharing folders. So I actually go in and create my own folder and share it with the recruiter and the other way around, but I actually do create my own folder just for me, which I don't share because this is roles that I don't really have yet, but I know I'm planning for in the future. Once you get people to get excited about that, see, I'm got excited now already talking about it. Once you get people excited about it, then it won't be a problem. It's just you need to get them into it first of all, and there the little competition usually works quite well, or showing the power of what's in there.
And just to add to that as well, just because I've witnessed a couple of the milestones, Frank's building a second team at LinkedIn. We built the Talent Solutions SMB team, and we're now moving to another fast-growing business in Sales Solutions. When it's happening in other departments, other hiring managers are wanting to know what's going on, particularly when someone's headcount is being hired above someone else's, and that impact that it's having, and that positive feedback, and the recruiter smiling and saying it's working somewhere else, why don't we try it here? And it's just about sharing best practice, and it's accountability. Like, it has to happen.
Thank you.
For Charlotte, I really liked your model that you were talking about. It's quite unusual. And one of the things that I took away from Lou Adler yesterday was how we should always be increasing the bar for our talent and really going for the best at all times. Were you able to measure whether or not your talent bar increased as a direct result of the moves that you made, or not, as the case may be?
Yes, I mean, I didn't go into any great detail, but the system that we bought also came with assessment technology. So we created a bespoke SJT, situational judgment test, which would screen out some candidates and obviously give them an indication of what it was like to work at Regis. So a much better candidate experience. People were much more informed about us, but actually because the more people that we have now applying, that group is growing, and our performance is improving, as well as our attrition coming down. Baby steps, but yeah, definitely. But we've got a form of measurement on it now.
Good afternoon. My name is Mira, and I'm from Schlumberger. I just wanted to ask, how often do you update your pipeline, and is this done automatically, or is it done by the recruiters?
Yeah?
Me?
Yes.
Okay.
Either, it would be great to hear both perspectives.
So Lindsay mentioned we have, I'm 4 years in LinkedIn and I never stopped hiring. So we've been in a very fortunate position that we work in a fast growing company. From a pipelining perspective, that's the only unfortunate part, because you never stop anyway. But I think it's a good practice therefore as well. And in the end, again, it comes back to as well, even pipelining for things that aren't there yet, and planning ahead. I can do that much easier, and therefore I do it. And it's a constant process for me.
We look at it from a perspective of, if I take it back to the talent tribes, talent pools, how many candidates should we have in those talent tribes? And the reality is it can't be a high number. So we really look to make sure there's a number. It could be 3, it could be 4, and it all feeds into the planning cycle. So having that visibility and partnership with your financial planning and analysis team is critical. So knowing when headcount is coming up, working with the HR business partner to understand if there could be a gap if someone's moving internally or potentially leaving, and how you have to focus on ramping those talent tribes. So, I don't think anyone wants to be in a position where it's getting a little bit low. Unfortunately, that's the reality. So we just tend to be realistic about it, but there has to be measurement, particularly in the repeatable volume spaces. I don't know if you guys do something similar.
I don't think we stop pipelining, do we, Nikki?
Yeah,
No, not at all. I mean, having that 4 to 6 month forward view helps us to realise where we should be targeting that activity, but we don't stop pipelining with all the growth that we've got planned in our volume hiring.
No, absolutely. And in fact, when we designed the system, we built a process within the system that allowed the hiring managers to open positions, post them through all their social networks in order to start building pipelines. And we've got a really active pipeline, and we did a lot of training on how to manage that pipeline. You need to communicate with that pipeline. You don't just ignore them and then expect them to want to come and work for us. You need to work with that pipeline. So something we've really focused on to help us to enable and support the growth that Regis is going through.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hi there, this is a question for Charlotte and for Nikki. Regis has been through clearly a huge sort of change in their ways of working over the past 18 months, and doing that at global scale. Kind of begin to imagine how you've owned that one, Charlotte. But can you share with us some of the key learnings that you've taken from going through that journey that I guess you continue to be on? I'm sure there's lots, but if you could share a couple of the key learnings, that would be great.
Some that are repeatable, yeah. I think it's just about keeping everything simple. I think if you have the right people in the right place doing the right things at the right time and have that engine room running, you can just turn the dial. So it doesn't really matter about the scale, the number. Don't focus on the numbers. Don't focus on how many people you need to hire and where you need to hire them. Get the model right, get the process right, and get that toolkit right, and the numbers just fall away. I think that was our key learning, because we had to do that, otherwise we'd just be scared off with the complexity. And the other part was communication. We did this at lightning speed. We rolled this out in 13 months, 94 countries and 14 languages, including all the assessment technology. And our technology partner was just a bit blown away, to say the least, and we did choose the market leader. So it's a case of, look, just get it done, get it out there, get it working, and then make it better. But just make sure you've got that model in place. I think, unless you want to add anything, Nikki?
No, I think you're totally right. I mean, ultimately, the uptake and the rollout was great. We had a couple of pockets which struggled. That we had to encourage and bring them along with us, and we just spent a little bit more time with those guys. So I spent quite a long time doing some very specific demos with some of our area directors and our general managers, and really actually once you sat down and had conversations with these guys, there was one key theme, and it was just they were a little fearful of what it was all about, and actually doing it for themselves. And once you just sat and said, look, you're going to hire the wrong person at some point, and that's okay, and we learn from it and we move on, that fear goes, and it's like, okay, I'm going to give it a go. And actually, we ended up with hiring managers almost racing to make the first hire. So it was really great, but yeah, there were issues.
We probably have time for one more question. Just at the front, Amy.
There's one over there.
Oh, okay. Maybe two more.
Hello. That's working. Hiya. I absolutely love what you're saying, but I want to kind of go back to the question that you posed, which is how is it possible to do this when you've got hundreds of roles kind of on at the moment? And what are some kind of tangible, quick wins that you can kind of start the talent pipelining with?
Yeah, sure. So you're absolutely right. And in the past 4 years, it's been sometimes hard at LinkedIn to catch your breath from a TA perspective. One of the big things we did was introduce a sourcing team. And it's actually something I wish I did a couple of years ago. So we've introduced a sourcing team, and they're also going to be a team that will develop owning an insights model for us, so to be able to do all the addressable market work you've heard about, that you've heard Brendan talk about today. So that's something that really has been a quick win for us, and it's something that's really helped the recruiter role elevate more to be the coach and the consultant. And then the hiring manager also works with the sourcers. It's not just here's the sourcer, here's the recruiter. It's very much a togetherness. So from my perspective and our perspective in TA, that's been a fantastic win. From a hiring manager perspective, it's just been that visibility on what's coming. And it's been knowing what's ahead of us, the growth. I mean, when I started, we had just entered into Dublin, which was our 3rd country. We're now in 9, each having a very different talent acquisition strategy. And just really been talking about how do we do this together? What can you do? What can we do? And how can we make it work when there's 5 million requisitions that need to get filled?
Hi, my name is Jeff. I have a bit of a curiosity in terms of as you grow laterally, geographically as well, and you are making your hiring managers effectively recruiters in their own rights. In terms of candidates' experience,
yes,
a candidate having multiple skills, for example, being approached by various hiring managers in various point of time, how do you control the experience of a candidate so that it's swift, that it doesn't happen over and over again multiple times? And how does the hiring manager share potential candidates that may not be applicable to him, but to his next colleague?
Sure, that's a great question. I'll take it from a LinkedIn perspective, and then definitely love to hear how Regis are doing this. I mean, candidate experience is paramount to all of our success. So when we use the recruiter tool, we're all on the same dashboard. So when you have the recruiter and the hiring manager on the dashboard, you can actually see the engagement that's happening. The last time an in-mail was sent, the last time an in-mail was rejected or not accepted. So you can't have that spamming effect when you're together on the one dashboard. So that's pretty amazing from a tool perspective, and it's helped us not experience those things when you do have multiple touch points. But then we have candidates that apply directly, and they're sitting in our applicant tracking system, and it's about the recruiter light touch. So we do have a process that we sit down and we talk through with, this is where you need to chat to the recruiter. When you ultimately want to engage with someone, there may not be notes or there may not be information on recruiter. Just double check with us and we'll check the applicant tracking system. The piece around, and something that's consistent for us, is we all understand the culture fit at LinkedIn, and it's something we really won't compromise on, so all of our hiring managers understand that. If there's a candidate that's fantastic but not right for them, they simply just chat to the recruiter, and then we divert it, and we then look to add those to different talent pools. Maybe from Regis' perspective?
Yeah, again, sort of two things. So our ATS will track that, but our recruitment champions on the ground, in theory, should be able to monitor their cluster, and they look after 10 to 15 locations. So it's not a huge amount, but they actively encourage our hiring managers to interview together, to look at candidates together, so it just makes it a whole better candidate experience. Now, I'm not saying that happens everywhere, but that's where we're trying to get to. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the party. There's just one more session left. And thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed Talent Connect this year.
Thank you.